we said that Prosper icons are just queries, are named queries that we store them in stored procedures. But for these queries to work, they have to have some conventions that we follow for every Prosper icon. The first convention is as in tables, the first column of the table must be the UID of the row, the UID column. Every icon in Prosper must have the UID of its main table as the first column that it returns. Let's move a little bit to SQL. Let me move here to SQL and let me show you an icon that is called project. You see, it's called project. So the query of the icon is called project ICO. So it's very important. The name is very important. Since it's called project, there must be a stored procedure that's called project ICO. In the stored procedure that called project ICO, it has a select statement. Basically, select blah 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 from blah 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 where, and an optional order by, a normal a normal query in SQL. What we need to do, what we need to mention here is, look, select top results count from project UID as UID. The first column that you should select is the UID. But what UID from what table? It's the table, because every icon is based on it can access rows and columns from more tables, but it has to be, its main table is one single table. So the main table of the project ICO is the project table. That's why we're selecting from the project table. So if we present rows in that ICO, every row will be a project row, and the UID is the UID of that row. It's very important. So every row that we see, the UID column is not shown. You don't see the UID column in the view or in Prosper, but it is a hidden column. This is where Prosper uses that UID to run any function on that row. The delete, the modify, the update, the progress, the properties, any function that you need to do on that row is the Prosper needs the UID of that column, and Prosper needs to know this icon on what table it is based on. It can be based on more than, it can access columns from various tables, but the first column must be the UID, and that UID must be from the main table of the icon. So this is the first convention that we do. We talked about the name. It has to be the name of the ICO, then ICO. We talked about the first, it has to be a select clause. We talked about the first column must be the UID of the main table. We said the icon can access columns from more than one table using an inner join or anything that you want to, but the first column it has to be based on one single table, which is the main table. This is the updatable table. When we insert in it. When we delete from it. When we modify there. Okay? Now, the second convention that you see, as you can see, we can give different names to any column. So, project UID as UID, project sequence as sequence, project name as name, project description as description, project type name as type. Here we can change the name of the column in the icon than it is in the table, because we might have different names. We might have accessing more than one table and doing a join. You cannot have two columns with the same name. That's why when we when we rename these columns here. So a project type name as type, a project standard item name as company, project status name as status. Okay, so this is the second convention that we do. The third convention, if, as we talked, as the first UID is the UID of the main table of that icon, and the last columns are of type UIDs, as you can see them. Project type UID, project std2 UID. Every UID column or every unique identifier column, it's a hidden column. It will not be shown in the view, but we will need it. So when we update, so if somebody wants to update the type of the project, we update the type UID of the project, and that column must be returned in that query. If we need to update the company, which is the std2 UID, we need to return the std2 UID with the stored procedure, so we can modify them. Okay, the fourth convention. The fourth convention are the parameters that we are sending. You see, user access to, result count, object UID, min status type, max status type, organs UID, project, whatever. Okay, we have some. We are very strict in naming these parameters, because this is the way how you communicate between you and the kernel. So the icon, when the kernel go and opens that query, it has to provide values for all these parameters. So we need to have a standard way of communicating between the icon and the kernel, because the kernel knows who is the active user, who is the user logged in right now, and what is his user access and user access to. So if we need in the query down there to say where project access and user access greater than 0, or project access to and user access to greater than 0, that would tell me this user has access to this project. This will guarantee me, that will show me only the projects that this user has access to. This is very important. But how do I know what user is logged in? The kernel will provide the value for the user access and the value for user access to. This, we cannot call it access, for example. It has to be called user access. It has to be called user access to, exactly as is, because from the name of the parameter, Prosper will know how to map that name into a function, and that function will return a value in as a big int to this parameter before executing the store procedure. The same thing as a result count. When we say, you know what, I want to show the first 200 rows in this icon or in this object, well, you have to say somebody, the configurator that designed this object, will say the result count is 200. So, or that's the first 200 rows, right? The result count is 200. So if you say I want a result count of 5,000, you could say 5,000. And once you this name is the results count, that will control how many rows I want to send back. As you can see, every icon has select top result count, means if you say the result count is 200, it will show you the first 200. If you say 4,000, it will show you the first 4,000. If you say 2, it will show you the first 2. This is also a named parameter. You see, all these named parameters, you will find them everywhere. The object UID is the most famous named parameter, means show me the projects that their object UID is this object. Where it is, it says, and project that object UID is object UID. Okay, so when we click on running projects, this is a project, this is an object called running project. When we click on, for example, commercial projects, it will show us only the commercial projects. That's the object. That's a different object in the tree. That's the object UID. It's identified by the object UID. The min status and max status, we will talk about them later. But this is when we run this icon in a lookup mode, means we're looking up a project. It will show you only the statuses that they're between min status and max status, and this is where it says here, min status equals 0 or status type between min status and max status. It's very important. The organs UID, as we said, Prosper is a multi-organization system, means multiple units or business units can share the same database, but usually the projects for one unit are different than the projects in another unit. So we always say where project organs UID equal this, or we show you the standard organization, which is 11. Note an organization UID with 11 means less than 10,000. This is also a data row that has less than 10,000. It means it's shipped with Prosper as a standard, as a kernel data. Okay. Then we have after that what we call the name columns. These project name, project status name, project type name, and project standard item name. These has a format of table, column, table, column. The project dot name, the standard, the project dot status name, project dot type name. We could not call it dot type name because of SQL. That's why we call it lowercase project, big T as the first character uppercase. Lowercase project, big S as standard item name. Why do we need these? We need these for user filters. So we could say, you know what? This user, he can have access to this object. He can have access to this organization, to this status and to this status, and to everything in this row. But you know what? I don't want him to see except the projects of type, let's say, residential. So Prosper would allow you to add a filter. We'll talk about it. A user filter that once you define it, the Prosper will send in the type name that user filter that you set. And if it's not percent, for example, if either percent or project type name like that project type name. So it is very important to have these filters so we can provide them if it is provided. If it's not provided, Prosper will return a percent, so it means not to control it. And there is one more thing, which is the full text search, FTS text. Means when I want to filter, I could filter, show me all the projects that have the name account, or have the name running, or have the name execute, or any name that you want to. This is a full text search, means it has in the project or in the memo of that project, it has this full text. Also here, Prosper will provide a percent if there is nothing defined. Otherwise, you can say, when you set the user filter, you can set, show me all the projects that are within this criteria, but they have this and this, or this and not this. This is the full text search of Prosper. Thank you.